This is the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League Trade Deadline Special. All the deals and big news recapped in 1 hour. Let's get things going with Darren Bates and Larry Fisher.
UFHL Trade Deadline Special proudly coming to you live on UFSN, where we strive to be your one-stop shop for fantasy sports. I'm Bates. He's Fish. How you doing, Fish?
Doing good, Darren. It was a heck of a trade deadline in the UFHL, so we got no shortage of topics and trades to talk about today.
Yeah, the question is going to be, can we do all this in 1 hour? It's going to be a lot to talk about. Today on the program, we're going to have some special guests, of course, the ever popular Steinbrenner, otherwise known as Luke Grenier. Sorry, now I'm getting his name mixed up. Owner of the Red Army, Arlo Schultz, owner of the Stingrays, Dean Millard. I mean, the list goes on and on with this guy. He's owner of Duckman's Domination, professional podcaster, fellow colleague on UFSN, and producer extraordinaire, also handling things behind the scenes here today. And we'll be back to recap and talk about some of the big deals and talk to our guests coming up in the program as well. And all that's going to start right after this.
We're just getting started. Take a breath and get ready to dive into Trade Deadline with Red Army owner Luke Grenier. This is the UFHL Trade Deadline Special with Darren Bates and Larry Fisher.
All right, you guys are stuck with me because Luke's not scheduled for another few minutes to be on the program. So if you guys want to just chat amongst yourselves a little bit, and I'll keep watching for Luke.
Absolutely. That kind of was the plan. So, usually I say the busiest man in fantasy sports, Fish, but, after the past week, maybe 12 or 24 hours, I don't even know what to refer to you as anymore. Maybe you need a Red Bull. How about that?
Maybe. We could run down the list. Even just today on a working Monday, right? There was 9 trades on deadline day in the UFHL involving or featuring 17 players, 7 prospects, and 4 draft picks. But if you go back to Friday and you say, trade deadline weekend, you're up to 29 trades since Friday. So it was a busy weekend. And then if you go back to March 31st, when Scott Lowater came on as the Yetis GM and blew things up for the Yetis as far as trading away Artemi Panarin and Mitch Marner in back-to-back days on March 31st and April 1st. That's what really sparked the trade deadline. And there have been 55 trades since March 31st involving 137 players, 40 prospects, 28 draft picks, and you can see nearly 2,000 USD, American dollars, have changed hands. And if you do the total, it's up to 205 total assets. And like I said, 2,000 American dollars have changed hands via trade since March 31st. So it's been quite the 2 weeks in the UFHL. And now's the playoff, the stretch run towards the playoffs. And a lot of the contenders loaded up and did some tinkering. So it'll be interesting to see how the franchises, how the standings shake out over these final 4 weeks, or essentially 4 weeks left in the regular season for the NHL as well as the UFHL.
Absolutely. And speaking of money, I think that was probably a good segue. Her final prize pool now over $51,000 US. And of course, the 2021 prize pool is now at over $31,000 US. And that's why I say it's a good segue. Speaking of money, there he is, Mr. Moneybags, George Steinbrenner. Luke Grenier himself. How are you doing, Luke?
Hi. How are you doing, guys? You're having a good evening?
Well, I think so. I think Larry's breathing a big sigh of relief after processing all these trades over the last week and I would say last day, in the last maybe even hours, just before we jump on this live program here. So thanks so much for joining us. I see it's evening where you are. It's Merry Christmas where I am. We're covered in snow here. I think we're probably covered in snow where Dean Millard is at. And who knows what's happening in BC. We don't worry too much about BC, but we are worried about Red Army. I saw this on UFHL now. I watched this, and I brought my flower. See, this is my flower. This is, does Luke trade? Does he not trade? Does he trade? Does he not trade? Right? He's on and off. And as Larry says that, this last little while, the Red Army was quiet by Red Army standards.
Yeah.
What was going on?
We traded a lot since August. I lost the count, to be quite honest. It's over 60 or 70, I don't know, trades. We've been on the market. We made one trade. We made just one, though, because the trade weren't there, because there is cap consideration, also because that we didn't feel we needed to trade that much. And a lot was asked, so sometimes, like Mike Bergevin would say, you have to be two to dance, or two to tango. What is his exact expression? I don't remember. You have to be two to tango. And we weren't I didn't find enough partners to trade, but we're happy with the team as it is. And we are happy about Nick Foligno who is getting with us. He's going to the Leafs, but he's also coming to Red Army. Probably more important for him to come to Red Army. But we're most happy about this trade because it will help us on the ice, but it will help us also in the future because we gave up a very good young kid, Philip Zadina, to get Nick Foligno, but we also received a first-round draft pick in 2023, and this is important for us always to look at the present, trying to win, but never forget that there are more seasons to come.
Yeah, it's a building strategy. Sure. Larry, what did you think of what Luke got done here in the last little bit, or maybe even want to comment all season? What are your thoughts, Larry?
Yeah, well, I think Luke was the biggest mover and shaker all season long, from going back to the magic he worked at the entry auction in October. That was sort of laid the foundation for his season. But Luke obviously and Red Army made some serious acquisitions mid-season since the season started, getting guys like obviously brought in big names, Mikko Rantanen, Kyle Connor, some Montreal Canadiens flair with Tyler Toffoli and Jonathan Drouin, but added some a handful of quality forwards that really helped push guys like Patrick Kane and the leaders and bring along some of the young guys. But I think the what Luke did at the deadline is he really opened up room for the youth movement because he sent out 6 players, getting back some futures, but really opened up roster spots he wanted to get Igor Shesterkin, New York Rangers Russian goaltender, up to get his chance to shine for Red Army. And then you look at on paper, he opened up a bunch of roster spots, but look who's coming up from the protected list to fill them. You got Alexis Lafreniere and Tim Stützle and Jamie Drysdale and Trevor Zegras and Kirby Docks back healthy. So, I mean, you go up and down the list. He gave up some quality players like Jesse Puljujarvi and Sam Steele and the PIM leader, Brendan Lemieux and Joel Armia and some guys like that. But all in all, you look at the juggling that Luke did leading up to the deadline and making his moves early with guys like Rantanen and Connor. But even at the deadline to open up full-time roster spots to promote his youth from the protected list, that, it's paying dividends, the work Luke did in the entry auction back in October.
Yeah, Luke, do you agree or disagree? Comments on what Fish had to say here?
I agree with Larry. He's the greatest insider in the game, always has the nose for the right answers. Absolutely, we made space for kids. The most important kids that enter our lineup in the last month. And probably that some of the Red Army Nation would have told me you would have been better to get that guy much early in your team. Is the New York Rangers goalie Igor Shesterkin. I'll go farther than that. If there's a race right now, that's probably because I've waited too long to get that guy in the lineup, because my 2 Flyers goaltenders has been a disaster. And that's not just a comment I throw like that. Because if you look at stats, season stats, if you look at, say, skaters stats for all season, right now, Red Army has over 100 points or maybe 85 points lead on the second place. That's more than the actual lead I got. We're number one for point for by skaters. But do you know where we are for goaltenders? 24th. I joked all season about 19. We're 24th for goaltending points. And still we're number one. So had I called Igor Shesterkin earlier, Shesterkin, he has more points than probably Carter Hart and Brian Elliott combined. We would probably have closed the race as we speak. But you know what? That's so fun to have a race.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
you know
it's
what?
down to 25 points. Oh,
Go
I was
ahead,
just
go
gonna
ahead,
say,
Larry.
down to 25
Larry,
points after last night.
I mean, Larry, it was 24. It's not anymore. It's over 40 now, or 37, I think. But the fact is that last night, Red Army has 6 skaters, and Titans has about 12. But tonight, it's payback time. Red Army has 13 skaters on the ice, and Titan has 5. So tonight, we will take back the lead, the points that we lost last night. But that stuff happened in the season. You know, there are postponed games, more games played on the night for a team that on the other one. And quite honestly, I'm not diminishing anything here. Titans and Vikings are a dead serious team. They've been hanging out all season. They've been staying close all season. They are fantastic opponents. And I wish the three of us the best. May the best team win at the end of the season. And whatever I finish, whatever Red Army finish, I will be happy of the season we had, because it's a fantastic first season. I like our team. I like the foundation. And I like lots of stuff about the teams. You know what? In this trade deadline, there have been a flurry of, quite honestly, I've watched 2 teams. I've watched only the Titans and the Vikings to know what they will do, how will they move, and I close them so closely. I follow them so closely that I can tell you what they did. So Ice Vikings acquired a great player, Ryan Strome, which I came close to acquire, but decided not to because the price, I wasn't at ease with it. And Titans acquired in fact the help me Brian, not Brian, help me. They acquired
Mike Hoffman.
Mike Hoffman, exactly, the St. Louis Blues forwards. I came close to acquire him too. Decided not to. The price was a bit steep for Red Army, so but not on this price, but just a bit steep for what I felt Mike Hoffman was worth. So we acquired one player. They acquired each one. I'm at ease with the situation right now between the 2 teams.
Well, Luke, I can see that you're feeling good about, very confident. And I like, it's that old saying, and maybe it's not the same in French, but in English, it's know your enemy, right? So you say you've been keeping your eye on 2, the Vikings and, of course, the Titans, or the Ice Vikings, I should say. And you seem to, it's almost like a chess game to you. You watch their moves, you know what they're going to do, and then you anticipate, and then you kind of go from there. I like your style. It's I thought you were 24 points up, but it may be a little bit dated on where it's at, but that was the last I checked. So you did expand your lead. Good for you. And I want to, before we run out of time, because we are on a time limit on this show, so we can fit it all in 1 hour. I just
very important to tell you.
Well, I just caught wind of. I know. I just caught wind of this, and I had no idea. Spill.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We acquired Nick Foligno, but that wasn't our best move in the trade deadline. Our best move in the trade deadline has been made off the ice. You know that right now, the front office of Red Army is composed by me as the GM, Adam Stephens as assistant GM, and best scout in the business, who's with me, Jeffrey of Alpine Prospect. I decided to add one more person right now tonight. I will announce it to the front office of Red Army. He's been a GM for a team. He is a scout. He owns an agency here. It's Rubis. So I'm announcing you that Jeffrey, I told you, Adam Stephens is our assistant GM. Jeffrey is our director of amateur scouting. And tonight I announce you that Harrison Millar joined Red Army as director of players development. A new position we designed just for him. So he will work with us. He will scout Canada for us. I have Jeff scouting Europe. And I feel that with two high-profile scouts on Red Army, our future can only be better. And I'm really pleased to welcome Harrison with us. Lots of experience and a guy who never turned a lot around the pot.
Wow. That's an exciting announcement, Luke.
I'm excited. So I know that he was with Elite Assassin. Ellen is the owner. She keeps 50%, I think, of the Elite Assassins. But from now on, Harrison Millar, in fact, since last night, because he informed Elite Assassins that he will not be affiliated with them. He has no tie anymore with Elite Assassins. He joined Red Army, and we welcome Harrison. Welcome, Harrison, if you're welcome.
Harrison has a scouting background, like you said, real world scouting. He's done some work at the highest levels and then consulted a bit with the NHL and stuff over the years. But certainly he's got a real stable of prospects there with Ruby ISS Scouting Agency. He was part of the initial futures auction. And I know you acquired a 2023 first round pick at the trade deadline from the, I believe, the Tornadoes in the Jesse Puljujarvi Sam Steele trade. And I mean, that's two full seasons away. Who knows where the Tornadoes will be, but you've acquired a couple of those 2023 first round picks. And when you look at Ruby ISS and their stable of prospects, they're proud owners of both Connor Bedard and Matvey Mishkov. So yeah, I know you have an eye on those young prospects for 2023. And I know you got some first round picks, hopefully in the Shane Wright sweepstakes. Talk a little bit about, like you said, keeping an eye on the future and being a part of that auction process for the top prospects, because we're seeing it now with what you did in 2020. And a lot of franchises have been quite eager to trade away their draft picks and maybe not hang on to them if they're at the, wherever they are in the standings. But for Red Army, it seems like you're willing to take those on and looking forward to going back to the auction room and latching on to a couple more top prospects and sort of keep that feeder system going. Is that sort of the way you're approaching those picks for future years?
Yeah, but I take some chances. When you acquire in 2021 a pick for 2023, you're taking a chance because you don't know where the team will fit in. I remember acquiring picks from Dynasty at the time when Xavier wasn't the owner, and people were saying, "Oh wow, he acquired that pick. It's going to be a great pick. It's a steal." You know what? I traded those two picks. I didn't keep those. And if I had kept them, I would have drafted probably 16 or 17 with them. So you never know. But from now on, I'm interested to check who's coming. You named hockey players. What did you say? Bedard? I don't know those guys, but I will make research and I will try to follow up with the big dogs out there.
Luke, always the character, playing the guy that doesn't know anything about anything. Yeah, we get it. Hey, Luke, that sound means that we are out of time for this segment. I want to thank you for joining and thank you for getting in that big announcement. I was actually very surprised. I was shocked when I saw that just a few minutes ago. So thank you for being on our program and on this live show today.
Thanks for having me. And Je n'aurais jamais annoncé ceci sur une autre chaîne. I would have never announced it anywhere else.
Awesome. We'll be back with Arlo right after this.
Let's Let's keep this train rolling. The Stingrays have been gliding up the standings and made moves with deadly accuracy geared towards a long playoff run. Team owner Arlo Scholes joins the program next. This is the UFHL Trade Deadline Special with Darren Bates and Larry Fisher.
And we're back. We're live. The UFHL Trade Deadline Special. Flying by the seat of our pants, off the cuff. Anything can happen. There can be glitches, but this is how live shows go. Welcome to the program, Arlo.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So the Stingrays, I've kind of I try to keep up as best I can. Full disclosure, I honestly can't keep up. But what I did notice is that Arlo in the Stingrays, relatively quiet, I thought, in some of the chats in deals throughout the season. But all of a sudden, boom, what the heck?
Well, some of these deals that got done recently have been in the works for a good long while. And, you're never really sure how a season's going to go. I know some people are big fans of power rankings and prognostications and kind of projecting how a season's going to go before it starts. But I've done fantasy hockey long enough to know that, sometimes you think you have a really good group and you're going to go for a championship run and your star players, your top guys have an off year or the injury bug bites or something like that, and things don't go the way you thought that they would. So going into the season, the goal was to be competitive. Just exactly where we would end up was something I didn't really want to project too much. You just kind of want to put your group together and go to war with them and see how things go. And so coming into the year, the goal was to, kind of let the chips fall where they may and then reassess as the season went. And it was a slow start. I think we were around the 20th spot for the first month of the year or so, had a few injury issues and stuff. And then after that, things started rolling and we started moving up. And by the time it came close to trade deadline time, it was apparent that the team had a good chance this year and that we could win the whole thing. And so you owe it to yourself to try to make the team stronger and make the moves with a buyer's, standpoint. And so these deals kind of all started coming together. And we actually didn't get everything done that we wanted to. There was a couple things that fell through, but we're still really happy with the group we got right now.
Yeah,
Fish, your analysis on all these moves. Massive. Sorry, Fish. With this delay, we always have to work with that. And we never know who's going to talk. That's just how it works. But I wanted to obviously get your analysis. We almost couldn't even fit everything that was in the sidebar of all the deals that were done here. So your thoughts on this, Fish?
Yeah, the Stingrays were active down the stretch leading up to the trade deadline. 7 trades since March 23rd. 2 real blockbusters that stand out. Acquiring John Klingberg from the Battlehawks in exchange for Brent Burns and some extras, but essentially Klingberg for Burns in that trade. And obviously Klingberg is younger and cheaper, so and has been having a good season. And Dallas is one of those teams that was sidelined by COVID and has a lot of games left to make up. They have more games remaining than a number of the other NHL teams. So Klingberg slid in well and has been productive for the Stingrays. And then the big blockbuster with the Yetis, which was such an interesting trade because you guys are division rivals and likely, almost certainly destined for a first-round playoff clash. But the big blockbuster when Scott Lowater took over the Yetis, Arlo and Scott hooked up for the biggest trade, probably during the season, the biggest trade in the UFHL was Arlo acquiring Mitch Marner and Zach Werenski from the Yetis in exchange for Sean Couturier, Cam Atkinson, and Tyson Barrie. And unfortunately, right before the trade deadline, Zach Werenski actually underwent surgery, season-ending surgery. So that was a big blow, especially with the Stingrays already having Oscar Klefbom out with season-ending, missed the entire season with surgery. But you look at that defense of the Stingrays and their cap hit and their ages, and it's really coming together. And then you add a real stud in a guy like Mitch Marner, obviously a bit of a higher cap hit, but just a a game-breaking type player on a franchise that in the NHL that's loaded up for a playoff run in the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I look at those two moves as what really shaped the Stingrays leading up to the deadline. But Arlo can speak to the amount of depth he acquired too, and really filling out that lineup. Guys like Patrick Maroon, Jujhar Khaira, on the back end, even a guy like Zach Bogosian, and the list goes on. I mean, I know Alex Galchenyuk and Eric Gustafsson were kind of right at the deadline, but there was a lot of moves made to really improve that group as a whole. And when you look at the standings, the Stingrays are right there. Fifth place is within striking distance, and I'm sure that's what Arlo's eyeing.
Yeah, I mean, so to understand that just happened, you actually have to last year when the initial draft happened. So you have your draft and only about 12 teams were participating in it. So there was a limited number of players available. And so the strategy going in, I thought, was to just pick the best player available and put the best team possible together, not worrying too much about philosophy and fit and certain categories and things like that. Is just you pick the best player that's available, and then as time goes, you can reshape, remold the team into the type of team that you want in terms of, you know, what sort of cap hits you're looking for, and in terms of which categories you're building for, things like that. And so we picked the best available players that were available, and it was somewhat limited on defense. And we ended up with Tyson Barrie on defense, who I thought was sitting on a bounce back season. And I got lucky. He got signed with Edmonton, got to play with McDavid on the power play there. So that always presents an interesting conundrum as a GM then. When you land in a situation like that, is Barrie the type of guy that you sell high on, or is he a guy that you just ride the wave and take the points and, you know, let the chips fall where they may? And so as the season progressed, Barrie was doing better and better. Really part of the reason that the team's been doing quite well. And I'd had some people inquire about him, and I wasn't interested in moving him. And so then the deadline time comes, and I happen to know Scott from a previous league that we are together in. And anyone that's been in a league with Scott knows that he's a wheeler and a dealer, and he's not afraid to make the big move. And so he came calling about Barrie, and the talks weren't really going anywhere. I was giving the usual, I don't think I'm going to move him type spiel. And he kept coming back and saying, well, what would it take? What gets it done? And, you know, when a guy's eager, you should probably give him an answer. So I, you know, had a look at his roster, and I didn't even think a guy like Marner would be available, to be honest. But, you know, if you're going to make a move that you don't have to make, you're going to aim high. And so his name came up, and as Scott indicated that they were actually interested in potentially moving him. So after that, the deal comes together pretty quick. I think I had to sleep on it overnight, and he was waiting for me. But at the end of the day, the rationale behind that was not just totally fantasy oriented, because I think you could really make the argument that Scott most likely won that trade in terms of fantasy hockey value. But for me was
I think that's the Costa Rican internet there, Larry.
Arlo froze up on us slightly. Hopefully he'll be back soon. But yeah, I mean, I know where Arlo's going with that. The big picture, the NFT value, the add-ons that are coming, and just what you can do with a marquee talent like Mitch Marner. And he's only, 22 years old, right? I mean, he's got a lot of career left ahead of him. So a real young impact player who's going to be key in the present and key for the future as this platform continues to grow. And we know Arlo's another guy who keeps an eye on the future and the potential outside of just the fantasy gameplay, what else UFF Sports is all about. And he, you know, he has big visions and big ideas as well, and has been a real influential person behind the scenes with UFF Sports as well. But I think he sees the big picture with a marquee player like Mitch Marner, and also he knows that a player like that's trade value because they are such a big name. They have that name value. So at any time he can turn around and trade Mitch Marner and get some quality players back. But that's a trade that I don't think he's lost any sleep on since he's made it, although Zach Werenski did get the season-ending surgery. But all in all, I think he's pretty happy to have Mitch Marner in the fold.
Yeah, no, Mitch Marner, one of those guys that I like watching play, and I am, if you go way, way, way back, a Leafs fan in my heart, and he's one of those guys that my teenage daughter would call a beauty. That's what she refers to guys like Mitch Marner, but a good hockey player, probably easy on the eyes for teenage girls. I don't know how that stuff works. I don't really think about that. But hey, I'm wondering, do you think it's obviously the Stingrays sitting in second place in the Lemieux division, seventh place overall, as potentially gunning for fifth place. I mean, they could end up there by the end of the season. I don't know what. A little bit more money, I guess, in the prize pool if you go from seventh to sixth to fifth. I think a difference of $500 US. So it's probably more about kind of building for the future in my mind, or a little bit of pride.
A little bit of both, I think. Obviously, acquiring guys like Erik Gustafsson, who actually got traded to Montreal in the NHL today, and then getting a guy like Alex Galchenyuk, who seemed like he was done hockey, and now he's picking up the pace with the Leafs and has a good role with the Leafs. But getting those two guys at a combined $500 USD cash considerations, and then you look at, again, going from seventh place to fifth place, and heading into tonight, the Stingrays were only 16 points out of sixth place and only 56 points out of fifth place. That amounts to, a couple good nights, and you're making that climb in the standings. And again, the difference, if you go from seventh to fifth, now that the payouts are locked in after today's trade deadline, is, $510. So you climb those two spots, you make that money back that you invested in Galchenyuk and Gustafsson, and they're going to be on playoff teams most likely. And, you have them then for the playoff draft as well, and a potential to win money twice on those guys. So interesting moves, but again, depth guys, but guys that can close that 56-point gap for the Stingrays.
And it looks like Arlo plugged that Costa Rican internet back in, so he's back with us. I don't know what you heard and what you didn't, but we were speculating whether it was a matter of that extra $500 paying back on that investment, or really gunning for fifth place as a matter of pride.
Well, I guess the thing is we were playing up until this $500. We were actually playing on a net zero budget for the year. And that's actually something that I'm quite proud of. We decided coming into the season that we would spend the money if it was warranted. Going into the prospect draft, or the auction rather, the goal was actually to splash some money around and buy some prospects. But then Steinbrenner stepped up and stole them all. And so we kind of decided to switch gears a little bit and just kind of sit and wait. And the thing is cash is not an issue. The budget's not really a limiting factor in terms of building a winning team here. But we weren't just going to splash it around willy-nilly. It had to be warranted. And so when your team is in seventh place heading up to the trade deadline, and, you're, knock on wood, you're relatively healthy, other than at the one position. And if it took $500 extra to kind of push things over the top and take a shot, I think it was worth it. It's not about the prize money. It's about the bragging rights. That's the main reason. And it's not even about finishing fifth or sixth or seventh. It's about winning the Klein Cup. And I think the players that we added in the last little while give us a better chance to do that.
And talk about that, the playoff rivalries that are going to be in the Lemieux division. When we realigned the divisions, it was hard to say which division was the strongest, or, which division to keep an eye on. But I mean, we're a month out from the playoff draft, and I think I can declare right now the marquee matchup of the first round is going to be that 2-3 clash with the Yetis and the Stingrays. I mean, it's basically locked in. The Ice Vikings are, quite a ways ahead in the regular season standings. It'd be tough to make up that ground. They're likely going to be the 1 seed, and Blades of Steel are, you've separated yourself from the pack from Blades of Steel, so they're likely going to be the 4 seed. But that matchup with the Yetis and the Stingrays, and then potentially facing the Ice Vikings in the division final, just talk about looking forward to the playoffs.
Yeah, and so going back to what I said there when my internet cut out, trading for Marner was a business decision as much as it was a hockey one. And keep in mind that the Yetis have Connor McDavid. So handing them Tyson Barrie to pair with McDavid in a playoff matchup against my own team is not something to take lightly. You're very possibly sealing your own fate when you do that. But again, it's about the marquee NFT value of players as much as it's about fantasy value, and having a premium NFT in Marner in the biggest hockey market in the world seemed like it was worth it for that. But yeah, that first round matchup is going to be tight, I'm sure. And as always, honestly, usually luck more than it comes to skill. Whoever gets hot and has more guys going at the right time is going to come out of that series. And I guess we'll let the chips fall where they may. We're happy going to war with the group we got now. If we hadn't made some of those depth moves, you might have always been wondering what if later on. But you filled out the roster as best as we can, and now see what happens.
Best of luck with the rest of the season with yourself, Arlo, and the Stingrays. And we're out of time for this portion. We'll be back with Duckman's Domination right after this. Thanks for joining us.
We wrap up the show with the last place team in the UFHL. Yeah, we're heading to the marsh to speak with some Mallard guy who's the owner of Duckman's Domination. This is the UFHL Trade Deadline Special with Darren Bates and Larry Fisher.
And there he is. You're so hard on yourself there, Mr. Duckman's Domination. You're making a big deal about last place. Come on.
Just the facts, guys.
Well, welcome to the show, even though you've been here all along. Sorry about that, Fish.
No, I was just going to say we're really bookending the show today from first to worst, you could say, as the guests go. But nonetheless, Duckman's Domination, just as busy as anybody at the deadline. And in a dynasty league, there's always reason to pay attention no matter what place you're in, and reason to build for the future. And definitely Duckman's Domination had an active role at the deadline, made 4 trades since March 31st. 3 big ones, essentially, bringing St. Albert boy home and Colton Parayko kind of kicked off the deadline push for Duckman's. And then another homecoming of sorts. Phil Kessel is back in the marsh now. He's back in the fold with Duckman's. And then also moving out a guy like Justin Schultz, who is, a quality contributor for Duckman's, but able to get a real nice prospect in Ty Tullio and a pick and some cash considerations to help the operating budget going forward for Duckman's. But all in all, some handy work leading up to the deadline for Duckman's.
Yeah, I thought, all along our strategy was that we were going to wait, basically until April. And we were one day short of that with the last day of March deal, which kind of, fell into our lap a little bit. I want to say it wasn't something we were thinking of, but when we started talking about it, it just made too much sense. But all along we had said, we were going to wait until the deadline. I had the Grizzlies all year long on me about Justin Schultz, and it's kind of fitting that that's where he ended up. And we kept saying, no, we're not ready. And then as the season went on, we thought, well, this might be our biggest trade chip. It's not much, but still, a top 4 defenseman that could help somebody. And so we decided to have there was interest in it, that we decided, okay, just give us our best offers. And our last guest, Arlo, was in on it, and he even said to me, he goes, I should have looked more because I didn't realize it was best offer. When you're dealing with Arlo, you just wait for the big offer that's going to come, because I got it for one of my players and I couldn't do it, but he was in the bidding, and so were the Grizzlies, and there was another team, and it was just a situation where we thought just the prospect was a little bit better, and the chance to be able to, pick our own player with that pick. But it was really, really close. I went into it thinking I'd really like to get a first round pick. That wasn't going to happen. We thought about keeping Justin Schultz and saying, this is a guy who we can use next year that has a good contract, but ultimately the capital with the cash helps out a little bit as well. So we trade out a defenseman, but we were really happy to get in on the Colton Parayko deal very early on. That, as you said, kickstarted it and kind of cemented kind of our blue line with Dante Fabro.
Yeah, you were able to make Justin Schultz that much more expendable, I guess you could say, by bringing in Colton Parayko. And you mentioned the Grizzlies. and I just look at the moves that Duckman's made, and a lot of it is kind of like the what goes around comes around theme. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think back in January, Justin Schultz was he originally a Grizzly, and you traded Jake Gardner to get him, I think. Back early in the year. So that one, and then the Phil Kessel trade started off. You had Phil Kessel, you traded him in order. A part of that package was to get Jordan Martinook. And then when you reacquired Phil Kessel, Jordan Martinook's going the other way. So kind of the what goes around comes around was the theme of the deadline. But some familiar faces are back in the fold for Duckmans.
Yeah, the Martinook trade was really interesting because that started out as, what do you want for Jordan Martinook? And I don't mind doing kind of 1-for-1 small deals, but especially at the deadline, I want to make a bit of a splash. So I immediately started asking for Alexander Holtz, and I was like, oh, we can't do that. So that started out as one for Martinook and grew into quite a bigger package that I really, really am happy of. And, I look at, the guy that we got in as far as our prospects, Craig Button obviously helps out, but George Batchel was key in asking for Jean-Luc Foudy in the one deal. So it was truly a team effort where I would, talk with one team, and then I would go talk to George a little bit, then I would send Craig, and then I would kind of compare notes and things like that. And it was really interesting. Without any of us being in the same room, we put a lot of teamwork into a lot of these deals. And, and some of these lists I was sending Craig be like, hey, pick the best 3 prospects out of these 60 guys. Because, he didn't have enough to do with pickleball and the trade deadline.
Yeah, I seen Craig was looking a little worse for wear from the pickleball tumble, but good to see him back on his feet and on TV again, breaking down trades for TSN today. But definitely a invaluable resource for Duckmans when it comes to identifying talent. And it is nice when you have Craig Button as your director of scouting or president of scouting, and a agency or an affiliate agency of a franchise says, take a look at our protected list, take a look at our reserve list with our scouting agency, and you can have your pick of the litter. And having a guy like Craig hand-pick guys, it doesn't get much better than that. But definitely identified some guys in Ty Tullio and Jean-Luc Foudy you mentioned, and Jesse Ylonen, who's having a decent AHL rookie season in Montreal's system. So, and then getting the 3 second-round picks again too, and continue to build through the draft. I know Duckmans has, if not the most total picks in the UFHL right now. It's got to be up there in the top 3 or top 5 for most picks owned over the next 3 draft years. So always looking to the future, and certainly maybe, if playoffs, hopefully you get some guys drafted in the playoff draft still, but big picture, you're probably counting down the days or have the date circled on the calendar for July 24th, that entry auction where, as we said at the top of the show, or I meant to mention at the top of the show, the trade that maybe jumped out at me today more than any other almost, or, caught my eye where I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then very interesting was Victor Soderstrom going from the Royals to Kamikaze, and Kamikaze parting with Tornado's first round pick in this year's draft, which we know is going to be a bidding rival of Duckman's in the whoever's going first overall, whoever you and Craig and now Arnie from Pipeline Prospects is the GM for the Royals, and they'll be right in there bidding as well. And that'll be a fun bidding war to see who comes out with first overall, and to mainly to see who the prospect is that goes first overall. Because as Craig said on Tracking the Draft many times, there's a few candidates that could go first overall this year. So looking forward to see what Duckmans do on July 24th in the entry auction.
Yeah, well, Craig has 2 guys that he thinks will go first overall, Gunther and Owen Power. So it will be interesting. And we have a strategy. I laughed when I saw that I'd be bidding against Arnie again, because I outbid him for Connor Zary last year in the entry draft after Luke Moneybag Steinbrenner outbid me for Hendrix Lapierre. So it's quite interesting. And I know Trish and Arnie had some good bidding battles during the prospect auction as well. But, Ty Tullio was a guy that, Craig and I talked about last year on Tracking the Draft. And I don't remember all the conversations of getting way too old and there's not enough space in my brain, but I do remember that guy, and there was an opportunity for us to get Brendan Gallagher at this deadline, and George was pushing Brendan Gallagher. He really likes that. And I like Gallagher as well. And then when we got Tullio, I said, that could be our Gallagher guy, you know, a guy with a motor that can fill a lot of categories and things like that. You know, I'm not sure if he's going to be as good as Brendan Gallagher, but they were both 5th round picks. So, you know, there could be something there. And you know, Jean-Luc Foudy adds some speed to the lineup. And then, you know, getting the 2nd round picks was actually a bit of a strategy for us. You know, we have that affiliation with high-level scouting. And I look at some of the players that high-level scouting has for the 2021 draft. And obviously Wallstead is a guy who, you know, they're hoping, and we as an affiliation are hoping that goes very high. But I look at some of their players, and I see some of the guys possibly slipping late first into the 2nd round, and an opportunity to spend those draft picks on those players. My wife and I share the same bank account, so I'm basically paying myself less the fees. And that's definitely a strategy that Duckman's Domination will be using going into the draft, is, you know, trying to get the players, if we can, from our own affiliation. If you're an owner in this league, you should have an affiliation. So that's part of the strategy why we, you know, wanted to get a few more 2nd round picks, because we think a few of those players are there. But, you know, we also could have missed out on things as well, guys, because we imposed our own deadline. You know, Craig, as I mentioned, very busy on the air with TSN today. I wasn't comfortable saying, hey, Craig, what do you think about this trade, when he is actually, you know, very has a you know, his priority is TSN. So we imposed that deadline yesterday. The Malcolm Subban trade just fell in our laps, so we did that. But we wanted to impose our deadline, and I know a lot of guys were talking about expanding the deadline. It seemed like it snuck up a lot of people, but, you know, I guess you could. I'm not really caring if we expand the trade deadline. It doesn't matter. I don't mind the trade deadline where it is. We got as much of our stuff done as possible. I do see what some guys are saying when they're working, but I think Arlo pointed it out in the Telegram chat. Next year, this could be your full-time job at the trade deadline, making deals for your team. So I think it just all comes down to preparation. And, you know, if you're going to be busy on that deadline, get your deals done before that, like we mostly did.
Yeah, I agree, Dean, with you know, it's kind of an interesting point you brought up. I was trying to very quickly go through some of the chats that I saw in the last day or whatever before we went live on this podcast, and I didn't have a lot of time, but I could see that, you know, there was a number of people that said, you know, this is one thing that should not mirror the NHL. We should extend this deadline, and I don't know if I fully put enough thought into it myself, but one thing that occurred to me, and I mean, I don't want to be shot for saying this, but I think it's whatever deadline you make, it's probably not going to work for somebody somewhere, whether that person works a night shift, whether that person works weekends, whether that person works in another part of the world where the time zone is just not conducive to whatever deadline we set. So I don't know. I think, you know, the way we do it in this league, you know, which is very innovative, is we take a lot of options to the owners, and
Sure.
And then we have some discussion. If it makes sense for the entire league to operate properly, then we put it to a vote and we can make that change. So I don't really know the right answer on that, but it's always probably not going to work for somebody somewhere. And I think you make a really good point. You get your preparations done ahead of time. Or the other thing I was thinking is, you take the afternoon or the morning or the evening off of work, depending on, you know, where you live and what you do. If this is elite high stakes, right? And if that's what you need to do, maybe that's what you have to do.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, listen, I'm not gonna. This isn't a hill I'm gonna die on as far as you know, staunch about keeping the deadline with the NHL. If you extend it, you get more trades. You know, it's gonna be a hell of a lot harder for us to do this show though if the deadline is midnight Eastern. I can tell you that much. But you know, that's the beauty of this thing, is that, you know, the owners basically control kind of the ecosystem. You know, just like, you know, Gary Bettman is in the Board of Governors meeting is not standing up and telling the owners what to do. They are telling him what to say on their behalf. And the owners will do this. There's going to be a lot of things now that the trade deadline is over as far as owners meetings. And, you know, there's probably going to be change every year with this league, which is good because, you know, if a healthy league is always looking to be better. So if they extend the deadline, that's fine. If they don't, you just have to, you know, plan ahead, make preparations and kind of go that way. Now, I'm saying that as a seller. it might be a little bit different if I'm, trying to get into the playoffs or trying to win a division. So whatever it is, you're right, Darren. There could be people in Europe that are involved in this league. Well, what time zone is the right one for them? So it'll be voted on, I'm sure. I'm sure it's extended. It'll be for a few hours, but I'm not crazy about the midnight Easter, unless we're going to do like the Saturday before or something like that. I don't know. Definitely up for discussion, though, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely need my sleep at night. That's for sure. So we'll see what happens. Again, it's going to come down to discussion, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. But hey, I just wanted to get your thoughts. I didn't see this announcement coming by Luc Grenier and Red Army in terms of what he just announced here, and we didn't have a lot of time to get into a lot of depth on it. But what do you think of that?
It's a smart thing to do. Honestly, you cannot successfully, in my opinion, run one of these teams without a lot of people. And, I've ran through the people that are on our team, whether it's George as my GM of the Mighty Mallards, an assistant GM with Duckman's Domination, our affiliation with, high-level scouting where Trish owns it and Craig is such a big part of it. And then, there's going to be more. We're going to be expanding at some point, with the different things. We do have Jamie Thomas on as a bit of a consultant, a guy that I bounce ideas off and things like that. So you have to have a team effort in this. Whatever I don't know the specifics of what each person's role is going to be, but it more and more things are looking like the real thing when it comes to this league. And it's not just, it's not just, I was going to say pretend, because every other league seems pretend compared to this, because this is the real thing. You do have GMs, assistant GMs, a scouting director, you're going to have different scouts and things like that. So pretty smart move. And I'd say it's a pretty smart move from Harrison as well, as he gets to be affiliated with the top team in the league and as a scout, and his wife gets 50% of a sale whenever that might happen. So they're sitting on a pretty good investment. So pretty smart move all around by all the parties, I would say.
Yeah, I like that partnership. And I think one thing, Luke, again, starting to acquire these potentially high first round picks on paper right now, picks that belong to teams that would be in that bidding for first overall in 2022 and 2023. And kind of, taking a page out of Duckman's playbook with high level, identifying which scout owns those players that you're going to be bidding on. And try to, have that affiliation where maybe you don't have to pay the full amount, or maybe some of that, however they're going to work the money side of it. But you look at Ruby ISS's prospect pool, and it's one of the best for 22 and 23, the upcoming years. And I'm sure Red Army had that in mind when Luc Grenier went to make that partnership. So I like the direction they're going, and I definitely think it could be a win-win partnership there as well.
Yeah, I think so. And Luke isn't in first place by a fluke. I'm still waiting for the 19 shoulder patch to come out for Red Army, but certainly it's no fluke. And as if you guys haven't been busy enough with trade deadline, we have this brand new website that was unveiled today that you can see on the screen. And man, I know you guys have put in so much work for this. It must be cool to see this.
Yeah, thanks for putting it up, Dean. I was hoping we could get into this in the last few minutes here of the show, because this is a monumental day. To say there has been a lot of work put into this is an understatement. I'm proud to say that I registered as a fan today, actually. So I can add to the fan numbers, and I have poked around in this thing in the testing phase a little bit and been super impressed. And I know Rob Love has had a lot to do with making this thing look very presentable as well. And Fish has been tremendous in the amount of hours. I don't even know, Larry, how many hours you've gone back and forth with the Zilliqa team on this thing. But we want to get this thing right. We've put a lot of investment into building this. And this is something you don't want to put out that looks kind of, half-cocked, I guess, for lack of a better term. You want it to be right, and you want it to look good. And that was the plan. And it was finally available today. So I hope that a few people had a chance to get in and poke around on it. If not already, then certainly here in the next few days. And we look forward to everybody's feedback. It's exciting. It's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be a lot of fun to be able to dig around in that thing for not only for owners, GMs, and scouts, etc., but just for people that just happen upon it from wherever they are in the world, whatever their happenstance. Finally we can bring something that somebody can see, that's going to show the value of this league.
Yeah, it's great to see it come to fruition today, Darren. And anybody who's watching can check out the platform. If you go to UFFsports.com and click hockey, it'll take you to the sign in, or you can just go hockey.uffsports.com as well. So hockey.uffsports.com will take you right to this page and to the hockey platform. And then in the top right corner, you can register as a fan, just like Darren did, or right there on the homepage, register as a fan, and away you go. There'll be a lot to follow on this site in the days and weeks and months to come, especially after the Scorecoin launches with the private sale on May 1st and the public sale on June 1st. And then UFF Sports will officially be in business, you can say. But having the physical product, having the platform up and running is certainly worth celebrating today.
Dean, did you have a chance to play around in it?
Well, I did register. I didn't have a whole lot of time between getting this show, and I had a couple other things, and then Malcolm Subban trade fell in my lap, so I had to grab that. And you know what? I credit the UFHL Insider segment for really lighting a fire under getting a goalie that's under contract next year for the expansion draft. So when that fell into it, I had to take some time to do that. But I'm really looking forward to, I was on the Duckman's Domination page, and I love that I can see the NFTs that I have. I can see the draft picks that I have. It's going to be great to have everything in one place. I still think every team should be keeping their own sort of spreadsheet at home with their team and their salary cap and things like that. But it's just so nice to have a home that we can go to and point people towards. And I think I don't know who said it earlier, but when you're explaining this concept to people, what do they ask a lot of times first? Oh, what's the website? I want to check it out. And oh yeah, we're just about there. We're just about there. And so now to be able to say, here's the website, and I sent it to a bunch of people today, and they were so excited that they can actually physically do it, because you can explain something to somebody really, really well, and they still might have problems understanding it. If they can go look at it themselves, and I think that's really going to help drive some people now to this platform, as if there's not already a herd coming right now with a few different things going on in the background. But this is really going to help people to understand a lot more. And I think for, that's, I'm talking about the fantasy people. I think, the crypto people that want to get involved, and the blockchain people and the people that are really into the NFTs, they're really going to like it as well, because, every franchise is going to be available all the time up there. So, I'm looking forward to the $500,000 offer for Duckman's Domination, and we'll think about that a little bit.
Yeah, Larry, you put a significant amount of time into this, so I want to thank you for that. Thanks for putting this idea in our heads of doing this live program today. I think it was a fitting live event. These things are pulled together almost last minute, but that's just how live action works. It's been a lot of fun. We had really busy last week, so on behalf of the founders and behalf of all the admin here at UFFS, I certainly want to thank everybody who contributed to all the trades all season, but in more particular over the last week and the last 24 hours, pushed the prize pool up over $51,000. And of course, we're going to have, to be exact, $31,396.52 USD added to the 2021 prize pool fish. So it's going to be exciting. Can't wait to give this money away. Can't wait to give some cups away. Can't wait to see who makes the playoffs and everything that's going to happen now. Now we can just kind of watch things roll toward the end of the season. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be a whirlwind. It's gonna come fast. Like I said, 4 weeks from now we'll be doing the playoff draft, and it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, some playoff races could potentially heat up, but certainly to see how the rosters look coming out of that playoff draft, and again using the unique leasing system and seeing for the non-playoff franchises to still have a rooting interest in the playoffs and watch their players on loan with the playoff franchises, and see, hopefully they can cash in a little bit as fans of the playoffs as well. And it's really taking off now, and it's super exciting. And thanks to the franchises who gave us all this to talk about today, and made sure it was an eventful deadline. And just all in all, it was a lot of fun doing this show, and a big thanks to the franchises for keeping me busy these last 2 weeks. 55 trades in 2 weeks was plenty. I'll sleep better tonight knowing there's no more trades coming tomorrow. But big thanks to the franchises for making this show possible with the moves they made.
Absolutely. So thanks to our guests today. We had Arlo from the Stingrays on the show, Luke, of course, from the Red Army on the show, and we'll be watching that race toward taking out number one here very, very closely, and I know he's watching this competition. Thanks for joining us on this live show. Thanks to Dean Millard as well for everything he does behind the scenes and joining us on the show. And you're watching us live for the UFHL Trade Deadline Special on the UFSN Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. See you later.
Thanks for watching the UFHL Trade Deadline Special on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. Find more great shows on the UFSN YouTube channel. This show was produced by DM Productions. Find us for your production needs at www.podcastalley.ca.